All right. It looks like we're live again. I got two things here that we're going to do in tonight's stream. We're going to be checking out some new gear that I got from Sweetwater today that I ordered a little while ago. But I'll talk about that as we get into that. And then we're going to be exporting some tracks out of Logic, getting those over into Pro Tools. I like to work in Pro Tools for recording and mixing and mastering and that kind of stuff, the more traditional sort of audio work. And then I do more production and writing in Logic. I just prefer the sort of UI of Logic a lot better, especially for MIDI. It obviously has a very easy to use and extensive sound library. I do have some obviously third party sound libraries, but obviously like that's very limiting when you have to spend money on a whole bunch of sound libraries. So Logic has a really great sound library. I know Ableton does too. I don't really use Ableton that much. It's something that I hopefully will get more experience with in the future. But yeah, so right now I use Logic for that kind of stuff. But yeah, so gonna be doing that. Gonna be bouncing out tracks from Logic, getting those over into Pro Tools. Just kind of showing you my process, going from one stage to the next. We're getting into the vocal recording stage now. We've got JX, the artist on the track. He's getting into the studio, getting prepared for that. And my manager, Mike, is up there with him. It's also JX's manager, is also Mike. So Mike's sort of been coordinating the project. We've been sort of referring to him as the executive producer of the project, sort of really coordinating that sort of thing. And then Patch is also getting ready to record his vocals soon. So we're really looking forward to that. We are working out a little bit of a further collaboration that I can't really speak of yet, but there is going to be some further collaboration in the works regarding that. Yeah, so keep in touch for that. But yeah, so first let's talk about the Sweetwater stuff. Really exciting. Let me give you some backstory on this. So, obviously, due to certain crises that are happening at the moment, and for the last few moments, we should say, obviously we're getting our stimulus checks, and so I wanted to obviously treat myself. Sure, like I just graduated from school, finally, after 8 long years, 8 long years, 3 different schools, a lot of debt, not even just school debt, but regular debt. Worked my way out of that. Obviously, I still have the school debt. Let's be real, but I mean my personal debt. Worked through that. Got that situation dealt with. And went back to school then. Went to Full Sail. Had a great experience. So, but it was stressful. It's a 2-year bachelor's degree, essentially. So it's extremely accelerated. So it was very stressful, and I was working a full-time job for the majority of that period up until the end. I was able to save up some money and take some time off. Which now that time off is a little weird, because now I'm having a hard time getting time on, with current events. But yeah. So anyway, so I felt like I'm gonna treat myself, but I'm gonna treat myself responsibly. I'm gonna do something that's gonna further my my goals, my career goals, my production goals, my artistic palette. So I was like, I could get like whatever. I could buy a whole bunch of video games, or I could buy, whatever. I could spend it on something, sure, that's entertaining, and there are times for that, but I really wanted to use this money responsibly, which of course I didn't spend the whole thing all in one go. I put a little bit of an investment into it. So let me show you what I got here. So let me grab just the first item here, or items. All right, so the first items I got, these are all the same items, but they're these Hosa little patch cables. They're like very tiny and flexible, which is why I specifically got them, because I got them for connecting guitar pedals. I wanted something very low profile. Like, I can make my own cables. Like, I know how to solder and make my own cables, but it was just like, I didn't really feel like bothering, especially when they're so short. And I just wanted something low profile, and namely 90 degrees. I hate making 90-degree cables. I just wanted something really like flexible and low profile. So I just kind of went through all of the options there. I picked these Hosa ones. They're like very skinny, which is nice. They're not thick like a standard guitar cable, like a standard 1/4-inch kind of cable housing. It's like very narrow and very thin, which I was specifically looking for something like that, because I just didn't want, they're not long enough to hang, so I want them like flexible enough to just kind of like put in the drawer with the pedals, so I got these. So yeah, so that's the first thing I got. The next thing I got was the it's a DB1P direct box, DI box. Because I recently got an amp, like a tube amp, small combo tube amp. It's a Blues Junior, kind of vintage style amp. And so I'm doing more amp recording now, and I wanted to be able to split the signal first off, and record a DI simultaneously. because that's just kind of an industry standard thing to do. And, it can help to, cover your bases when it comes to budget limitations and time limitations and things like that, to avoid having to bring an artist back in to record. Obviously, like, that is not really like the standard. Like, you still want to capture that human element, but I think it's always nice to have the tools available so that when you need them, you have them, but you still try to do the best you can beforehand. You try to get it initially, and hopefully it goes, and you won't even need the DI, but you'll have it if you need it. It's always good to be prepared. So I got that, so I'm also trying to be able to cater to a more, I don't want to say acoustic because that makes it sound very specific, but like organic type musicians as well, like what I would say non-electronic musicians, bands with bass players and guitar players and a drum set player and that kind of thing. So I'm trying to expand in that area, as well as just have the tools for my own personal production use and whatnot. So got the DI box. So that's the second item. Get to the next item. All right, this is the one that I'm really excited about. Got the Radial Pro RMP reamp box. I have never used a reamp box before. This is a new adventure for me. The big thing that my idea for using this is to use the virtual pedal board in Logic as a real-time pedal board, like plug my guitar into the computer, with the DI box and whatnot, and then run it into Logic, put on the virtual pedal board, and then run that signal with the pedal board effects out onto into the amp with the reamp box, so that I will have access to pedals that I don't have physical access to at the moment without having to spend extra money right now. And then also, be able to layer and route and create sort of textures that might not ultimately be standardly possible. So to try to experiment with that kind of thing. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to try this out, see if that works, and then also just standard reamping procedures and things like that. So this is, very exciting to me. I have one more item to show for now. The order got split. Oh yeah, more backstory. This took 2 months to get to me, not because of Sweetwater's fault. I definitely want to iterate that. Like, it is not Sweetwater's fault. Obviously, like, we're dealing with very intense situations right now. So, so obviously things like getting stocks in and, being able to import and export goods is heavily stressed at this time and at that time. And so basically what happened was one item was back ordered, and they were going to receive new stock. And by the time that came in, another item on the list became back ordered, and delayed the order even further. So I basically just sent an email over to Sweetwater. I was talking to Vern Cruz. He was my rep for this. And so, it was basically just like, yeah, we'll split the order. And so they just pulled the one item that was not available off, and that's going to be sent to me whenever that comes in. It seemed like a kind of a smaller pedal company, so I think they might have been impacted a little bit more tremendously than the larger companies. So yeah, that's why I think it's taking a little while. But yeah, so that'll come. It was a tremolo pedal. I'm excited for when that's going to come. I've never had a tremolo pedal before, so I'm excited to try that out. But yeah, so other than that, let's get to the final item, and this is going to be really, really cool. All right, so this is the Crybaby Wah pedal by Dunlop. I used to have a wah pedal a long time ago. When I was in high school, I bought I think it was like the Dunlop Mini or something like that. I think it was a Dunlop Mini. It might have been like a Vox Mini. I don't even remember what the brand was, but I think it was like just like a miniature version of like a like industry standard pedal. And so and I didn't exactly know how to work it at the time. I didn't even really know what a wah pedal was when I got it. It was just like, oh yeah, it's a wah pedal. It's like Kirk Hammett uses it, and Jimmy Page uses it, and Jimi Hendrix uses it, and like like I just knew that like people used it all the time, but I didn't even know what it actually did. It was just like, yeah, it goes wicka wicka like that. And the only reason I got it was because I was playing guitar for like a musical. We were doing Legally Blonde, the musical, and I was playing guitar for that, which was extremely difficult. It was like a very, very difficult musical to do, but it had very specific pedal requirements, and I had almost no pedals at the time, because I was only partially a guitar player at the time. I was kind of playing multiple instruments throughout high school. So I never really fully committed in one area to like buying equipment until I was like in college. And so I had like a distortion pedal and like a chorus pedal, and like that's it. Like that's all I had for like years. And then I had to do this musical, and it had all these very, very, very specific requirements, including a wah pedal. So I had to get this wah pedal, and I didn't know how to use it. I didn't understand like how to like rhythmically play with the wah pedal. So I was just like going like really, really fast and arrhythmically. So it sounded really, really bad. So, and then after high school, I really stopped playing guitar for a while. I was focusing like very heavily into percussion and drums. So I ended up like selling a lot of pedals, including that wah pedal, especially because I didn't know how to use it. So, but then as I got older, I got into more multi-instrumentalism again. I was like, man, I really wish I had a wah pedal, because I started listening to a lot of like Motown and funk and like R&B and that kind of stuff, and getting into what I would say are more Afrocentric styles of music. As opposed to more like mainstream rock and that kind of thing. That was very how do I describe it? Very I would say borrowed from the Afrocentric music styles. So it definitely opened me up to that kind of thing. It definitely opened me up to that kind of stuff. You know, James Brown and Stevie Wonder and you know, Diana Ross and Marvin Gaye and that kind of stuff, like the very like doo-woppy Motown and funk and that kind of stuff. Tower of Power and Earth, Wind and Fire and Parliament Funkadelic and that kind of stuff, like the very rhythmically focused and groove oriented styles of music, and you know, so I was like, man, I really need a wah pedal. And so you know, and it was like, yeah, I could get a wah pedal, but like I don't really play enough guitar at the time to even like warrant getting one. So, but now I've been doing a lot more guitar playing, and so I was like, all right, this is my opportunity. I'm getting a wah pedal, you know. So got the wah pedal. I'm really excited to try this out and really you know, now use my more refined skills to figure out how this works, essentially. So I'm really excited about this. So that's my order from Sweetwater. I'll keep you updated when the next shipment comes out with that tremolo pedal. But yeah, so we'll do a quick jump over to the session and we can get started on the next part here, and get working on this project, and I can explain my process through this, and you can just kind of see this sort of behind the scenes look at, you know, what the day in the life of a audio person is, I guess. At least someone on my level, which is the bottom. You know, but everyone starts somewhere, I guess. So, but yeah, so let's jump over to that. All right, now I'm down in the lower left corner. If you take a look above my head here, You can see my social media and my website. I am Instagram at MattJohnsonAudio, Facebook MattJohnsonAudio, and then my website is MattJohnsonAudio.com. I'm going to be honest, I don't even know how I got that, because I have a very normal name. Like, you know, I have a very, like, standard name. And, like, so I'm surprised I didn't have to do, like, you know, Matt Johnson Audio 1 or whatever. Like, I'm surprised there isn't any other people using Matt Johnson Audio. But whatever. It's nice. I get to keep my brand consistent across social media, so I lucked out. Alright, so we're working on this song with the artist JX, and also Patch Denim. We are working out a further collaboration that is yet to be totally worked out, so I can't really discuss that yet. But we'll keep you updated on that. So we're getting ready to go into the next stages of the project. We've basically have finalized the production elements of the track for the most part, at least in terms of the instrumentation. So we are now sort of getting into the stages of recording and editing and mixing. So I like to do all of that stuff in Pro Tools. I think the UI for editing and just you know, sort of fine audio cutting and manipulating is just a lot easier in Pro Tools. Just because with Logic, it is very I don't know, it's like hard to see like how to be accurate, and editing to transients is very weird and difficult in Logic. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna zoom this in really, really far, and then it just doesn't feel smooth to move things around and that kind of thing. It just feels like so delicate. So whereas like Pro Tools, I feel like I can really rough it around and it's gonna be okay. So I just really prefer, especially things with like, I like to exploit the grid a little bit when I'm editing. So the grid in Logic is like very I don't know. It's very like spongy, I guess you could say. It's very spongy. Like it never really feels like it's truly on the grid. Like I feel like I always have to like second guess it and like double check that it's actually on the grid. Like it just doesn't feel snappy enough. You know, so like with MIDI, it's like great. It's to a grid, great. Like, you know, you go into the MIDI editor, there's a grid. This is great. I like this grid. This is snappy and nice. But like then you go into this and it's like, oh man, like this doesn't feel good. And honestly, I hate the rounded edges on these because it just doesn't feel like I like a nice square edge. You know, like when you see a nice clean line on Pro Tools, it feels good. It's like, yes, it's right there. Right there. It's just stopping. You know, it doesn't feel like, oh. So, you know, Logic just makes me uncomfortable when I'm doing something so sensitive like editing, where you're gonna like truly mess up this audio if you don't do it correctly. You know, so I don't want to mess around with that in Logic. So I do everything after production, the production stage, I do in Pro Tools. Like, I know, like, that seems like extra work, and it is, but it's just like Pro Tools doesn't hit the mark for me when it comes to writing and production and MIDI and that kind of thing, and Logic doesn't really hit the mark when it comes to precise editing and just, you know, having a nice clean interface to work with. Like, Logic can get pretty messy pretty quickly, pretty easily, versus Pro Tools it just feels very easy to organize, versus Logic, I feel like I have to struggle to organize tracks and just keep everything organized. Like, so I like to just remove myself from the chaos. Like, I like the chaos when I'm producing because it keeps things spontaneous. But when I get to the next stages, I want to be like a scientist. Like, I don't want to be an artist. I want to be a scientist. Like, this is a precise thing. You put a microphone here, you record it properly, like, you make it sound good, like, you edit it correctly, you make sure the transients are properly placed and edited. You make sure that you're not creating pops or clicks or weird fade-ins or fade-outs. You're making sure that, depending on the type of song, that you're not cutting out empty space where you're going to obviously hear that you cut it to silence. And then once you get into mixing, while it is kind of a creative thing, it is still like math. Like, you're still doing math. There's still very utilitarian things that you have to do to make sure that things are working properly. Mastering is like the most scientific of all. Like, that's not really creative at all. Mastering is very much like, no, this is about numbers. Like, this is about, how loud is this? Is this gonna, is this going to meet, broadcasting standards? Is this going to work when we upload this to Spotify? Or is this going to work when we upload this to SoundCloud? Is this going to work if we put this in a movie? Is this going to ruin this movie if we put this audio file because it was mastered improperly? It's those sorts of factors. Is this going to sound bad when you put it through a mono speaker? Now everyone's Bluetooth is like a mono speaker. So, you have to make sure that, the track isn't going to fall apart under those circumstances. So it becomes very much like utilitarian. You're making sure that the product works and it's functional, versus when you're doing production, it's much more, creative thinking. It's, let me try something weird. Let me try something different. Let me try this. I'm going to get rid of that. Let me do this. I'm going to get rid of that. It's very much trial and error based things where like recording and mixing. Recording, there's a little bit of trial and error. Like, mixing and mastering and editing, there is no trial and error. Like, you have a purpose, you do it. So, that's sort of why I like to do that, because it goes from like very cute and bubbly, oh, we're Apple and we're like cool and we make MacBooks and our MacBooks are rounded. Like, okay, let's go to Pro Tools now. Like, I want square, mathematical, hard, very clear cut, utilitarian function. It serves a purpose. I know Pro Tools is very quickly becoming not the industry standard. Let's be real, Ableton is. But I like it. I will learn Ableton eventually. But, right now these are the tools that work for me. And, but anyway, I feel like I've had a lot of ranting in this episode. All right. So, basically what I'm going to do here is Logic doesn't have a very great way of exporting files in a way that makes me comfortable that it's gonna actually work. So what I do, and unfortunately also you can't bounce out a mono file, like a mono bounce, which is weird, because like Pro Tools can do that, and I'm sure Ableton can also do that. I'm sure Studio One can also do that. So like I don't know why you can't bounce out a mono file. So it's kind of annoying because like I want my snares to be mono. I want my kick to be mono. I want my hat and shaker to be mono. I want my bass to be mono. That kind of stuff. I want my vocals to be mono. So it's really, really inconvenient when I bounce it out. It has to be a stereo file. And so like I end up having to like pan everything to one side or whatever, or like do some kind of like weird stuff that you'll see when we get into Pro Tools, some of the stuff I have to do. But so anyway, so we'll start with the kick. And I'm just going to keep these pre-blended. They're just going to be pre-blended. I'm just going to commit. I like to just commit, I don't want two kick tracks. Like, there's no need. Like, I'm just going to make it sound the way I want it to sound. Like, I like to produce with an end goal of, like, you're going to take the sound I make, and it's just going to be a kick. You're not going to have kick 1, 2, and 3, kick high, kick low, kick this and that. Like, you're going to get kick, if it's an electronic kick. Obviously, when you're recording a kick drum, you might have two kick tracks. Although, if I'm being honest, if I were recording a drum set track and then passing it on to another mix engineer, I would probably just mix the two kick mics and then bounce them into one file. And that is what I send him. But yeah, so I just like to commit. Like, you're going to get the kick you're going to get. I'm going to make it sound the way I need it to sound in Logic as much as I can without putting in an extensive amount of, like, I'm not going to pre-mix it entirely. I'm just going to kind of make it a nice blend, make it sound how I want it to sound. And then that's it. And then that, And then I'll do further shaping and that kind of stuff in Pro Tools as if I were mixing a live kick drum. So, yeah. So, I already have the entire track selected out. I'm soloing the kick. So you unmute that. So you hear just the kick. Okay, so then I'm going to go do this. I'm going to bounce projects and selection. It's 24-bit, 48K. Interleaved, PCM, WAV file. I'm not using any outboard gear, so I can just keep it offline. I don't normalize. I normalize in Pro Tools. And I'll show you that process as well. So then I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to that. And then I'm going to go to here. And then I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this Mix Bounces Updated. Okay, I already have mixed bounces from when it was a slower tempo and there was different bass line. So mixed bounces updated. Okay, so now I always number my mix bounces. I always number my mix bounces. To make sure that one in the folder they're organized from like first to last, specifically how I like, I like specifically set up like kick snare, hi-hat, blah 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 blah, bass and that, this and that. So I number it in the order that I want it, so then in the folder it's organized but in order. And then when I import it into Pro Tools, it will already import it in the order I want it to be. And then I'll usually take the numbers off when I rename everything and like just make it like session style, because it's obviously going to import with the actual file name, and then I just like rename it to be just kind of standard like kick, snare, blah blah blah, not 01 kick or whatever like. So, yeah, so I'll go 01. I like underscores in my jam. 01 underscore kick. And so then I click the mix bounces updated, make sure it's going to there. And then bounce. Now it is going to bounce a stereo file. Unfortunately, I do leave it stereo. You could ask, why don't I just pan it hard to one side? And my only thought with that is I'm not sure if it's actually a stereo sample or if it is a like dual mono sample, basically, So what I do is I keep it stereo in Logic, and then what I do is when I go into Pro Tools, I will then take the stereo file and I will literally funnel it down into a single mono track in into a single mono track so that any kind of stereo whatever just gets funneled in naturally instead of being squished to one side unnaturally. I don't know if it really makes a difference. Just in my head, it makes sense. That's not like a rule or anything from my knowledge. That's just like the way I do it for whatever reason. So, yeah. So, okay, so we have the kick done. Cool. Then we're going to go to the snare. Same thing. It's already pre-selected. You're going to hear just the snare. Okay. So you have your snare. Now, what we're going to do is same thing. Go to bounce, projects and selection, 24-bit, 48K, interleaved. It's PCM, so it's a wave. Again, offline. Don't normalize it. Cool. Now, take this. Go O2 underscore snare. Okay, O2 underscore snare. Now we're still in the same file. Good. Now we're just going to bounce it. This is the boring part of making music. Yeah, it's a lot of sitting in silence. I mean, I guess you could put music on in theory, but I feel like you would have to keep stopping it a lot to like just make sure that like when you're gonna double check, just that everything's going. Okay, so now for efficiency, because I want these two mono things, instead of having to bounce out two stereo tracks and then turn them into mono, I'm just going to bounce out one stereo track and then turn it into two mono. So basically what I'm going to do is pan this hard left, pan this hard right, and then solo these. You're going to hear nothing, and then the shaker is on the right. So the hi-hat's on the left, the shaker's on the right, and then when I bounce it out, it'll be essentially two mono files just linked together as one file. So again, go to this, go to that, and then 24-bit, 48K. I like 48K. Like I know like CD is 1644.1. That's like standard, but nobody even buys CDs anymore. So, and realistically, most music is just going to turn into an MP3 at some point anyway. So, like, what I would rather do is have the core files be a little bit higher quality, even though they're generally going to be downgraded, whether it goes on a CD or onto Spotify and becomes an MP3, or goes into Apple Music and becomes an AAC file. But you know, you're sort of future-proofing it a little bit, which like this isn't even future-proofing it. It's like couple year proofing it. Like, I know a lot of like film audio is like done in like very, very high resolution. Like they're going all the way to like 192. Um, but but they're going all the way to 192. Because they are very much future proofing. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're filming movies in 8K right now and just releasing them as 4K because like 4K isn't really widely available enough. But they're future proofing their movie. So, this is a little bit of future proofing. The music industry isn't really future proofing itself that much. I mean, it never really has, if we're being honest. Like, if you listen to an album from the 70s, it doesn't sound, no matter how much remastering you do, it's not going to sound like a brand new recording. Like, it's not future proofed really at all. Doesn't mean you can't listen to it. I listen to albums from the 70s all the time. Like, it's just what it sounded like. It's like watching a movie from the 80s and being like, man, this is grainy. It's like, yeah, of course it's grainy. It's from the 80s. Like, that's just what you expect. So, I mean, like, I like a little bit of future proofing. Realistically, I think everyone should be doing 24-bit 48K at the very least. Like, I don't think anyone should be doing 44.1 at this point. Like, hard drives are huge now. There's no reason you can't do 48K. It's one step up. And 24-bit, like, we use a lot of tracks now. You kind of need 24-bit. Like, 16-bit is not enough when you have 100 tracks in a song, So, I mean, even orchestras have been using 32-bit for at least a decade already, if not more. Like, they were very, honestly, classical music has been very, very ahead of the trend in terms of recording quality because they are very, very concerned with audio quality and the quality of the sound of their instruments. And so, they've been recording at high bits and high sample rates, for way longer than the music industry has. That's the regular like commercial music industry has. The classical music industry is actually like a very, very early adopter of the digital transition. So, but yeah, so I like to do 48K. I feel like it's the least you can do to like be up with the quality of today's work. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is this one I'm going to label a little differently. I'm going to go 03 -04 hats and shaker. So 03-04 underscore hats and shaker. That's how I label these like dual use tracks. So okay, so bounce that again, more sitting and waiting. All right. So, okay, so we have all the drums done. So I can do this. And I'm going to set these to mute, meaning they're done. They are bounced out. We're good. Okay? So now I'm going to continue to do this in the order that I like it, which is not the order that these are in. So next I like to do bass. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to solo it. Again, this is going to be in stereo, but I want this in mono. So basically what I'm going to do is so basically I'm gonna treat the bass guitar just like the kick and snare, and we're gonna funnel those in Pro Tools because I'm not sure if it's really stereo or if it's just dual mono. So like, I'm gonna just do it like this. So I got it soloed, got it selected. Let me just double check that this is soloed. Cool. Okay, so then go to bounce, projects and selection, PCM 24, 48. It's a very repetitive process. Five. Bass. Okay. And bounce. Yeah. I've been watching the I watched the EA Play Live event last night. I was watching the I wasn't even watching it by itself. I was watching it with Kind of Funny. I was watching their like live reaction to it, and I'm pretty excited. I'm excited for Star Wars Squadrons. That's gonna be really, really cool, and I'm really excited for Skate 4. I don't even skate. Like, I don't even skateboard. I don't do anything. Like, I don't even do like anything really athletic. So, but I really like skate. And I'm really excited for the Avengers video game that's coming out in September. I watched the I watched their not E3 thing of that as well. Okay, so moving on. Now we're going to do the synth bass. This actually is in stereo. That will actually be in stereo, so I don't have to do anything with that. So it's just as simple as going to here. Okay. Synth bass. 06_synth bass. Okay, and bounce. The other thing I would say regarding what I do in Logic versus what I do in Pro Tools is I usually will I'll usually do some panning in Logic as I'm producing, just because I'm trying to create like a sort of spatial sort of thing. But generally, when I transfer to Pro Tools, I will usually make it mono or full stereo, and then do the pan in Pro Tools, just because the panning in Pro Tools is a little bit more easy to wrap your head around spatially, because they do values of 100 versus Logic does values of 63 and 64, so make 127, which is the amount of basically like individual like steps in the like sort of processing world, like the in computer language, you basically have a maximum of 127 values, and so they base it off of that for some reason, which is really weird because that's not how humans think. And this is made for human beings, not computers. So, so it doesn't make any sense. So, versus in Pro Tools, you have a system of 100. So it's very easy to think like 100% to the right, 50% of the right, 75% of the right. Like, you're thinking in percents to the right and to the left, not some weird abstract number where it's not even an even left and right. Like, the left side has more than the right side. So it's like, it doesn't make any sense. So I don't really like do that. I mess around with that thing in Logic, except for just like casual. Okay, I know this is going to be over to the right. I know this is going to be over to the left. Like, I'll just generalize it. But in terms of the like finalize specific placings and automations and that kind of stuff, I'm generally doing that in Pro Tools. Okay, so we did the synth bass. I generally what I like to do is, obviously I like to do the drums from low to high, and then I'll basically do the bass or basses, and then anything else I will basically like categorize from low to high. So like basically right now, like the next thing is the dark pad is like the next lowest thing. So I'll do that next. Let me mute this. I forgot to mute that earlier. So we'll do the dark pad, solo the dark pad. This is full stereo, so we're good there. Bounce that, project and selection. Okay. So make this 07. And pad. And then we'll bounce that out. Okay, so now that that's done, next I'm going to do the piano. Some of this low to high thing can be a little abstract, but you just kind of use your judgment. It doesn't really matter, if we're being honest. Okay. Also, this piano's in stereo, so we don't have to do anything to that. Turn that 08. Piano. Bounce. If you haven't been watching previous streams, just redid the piano recently. I found out I found out that the Logic pianos, at least the one that I'm using, is not in stereo. Like, it's full mono. And so, like, I could make it stereo manually. Like, I can input all the panning across the piano, but I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna use this what's it called, the addictive keys piano. Okay, so we got the piano done. Next we're gonna do the Fender Rhodes here, the bright Mark II blackface, which is not a Rhodes. So solo that will be in stereo. So again, don't have to do anything to that. Do. Okay. Okay, so 09_Rhodes. You could also do like 09_keys, but like I have multiple keys, and like, so like if it were the only keys, then I would say, yeah, name it keys. Or if one was piano and the other one was keys, but like there's seemingly multiple keys. I've gotten really good at crushing cans with my bare hands. I've been doing some pre-planning or hypothetical planning in my head about, like, can this be done live? Like, could we have just literally like a stage of musicians play this song? And the answer is yes. And it wouldn't take that much to do, to be honest. Basically, my thought process with this, let me get another thing going real quick before I get into that. I did the dark pad. So then the harpsichord's the last thing here. And so basically, the drums would obviously be like an electronic drum pad with a drummer playing. And basically, some of the little fast hi-hat things and shaker things would be like pre-programmed, like you hit it and it just goes like it plays the full like 30-second note rhythm. And so basically what you would have to do then is basically the drummer would just have to listen to a click. And so basically you would have the piano and the harpsichord never play at the same time. So that would be the same person. So basically you would have the drummer with electronic drums, you would have a bass guitarist with a 5-string bass, and then you would have a person on keys using like something like main stage, and they would be playing the synth bass part with their left hand, and then the pads in their right hand. Basically combine the two parts together. The Rhodes would basically be one person on main stage, or a Rhodes if you had a Rhodes, but most likely it would be main stage. And then basically the piano player, like the piano part and the harpsichord part, would be played by a third keyboard player using main stage. And then they would basically just switch back and forth between the piano part and the harpsichord part, or have the piano part in one area of the keyboard, and then the harpsichord part up in the like upper register of the piano. And then basically, because there's some samples, there's this like reverse snare thing that I added. Did I add that off stream? I think I'm gonna add that off stream. And then I have this like weird transitional thing here, and then the record scratch, and then I also have like some audio samples at the end to sort of set up a thematic thing. And so basically all of that would then get put on a sample pad, like a sampler, and a person would like just trigger the samples. So like it could very easily be done live in a situation where you don't have in-ear monitors. So like basically only the drummer would have a click, and then they would basically just have to play in time with the drummer basically. So yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. I am back. Sorry about that. Okay, so what was I saying? So yeah, so basically, this could definitely be played live in a very simple, low budget setting. So I'm kind of interested in potentially making that happen. I think that is going to be really cool. Okay, so anyway, did I do the harpsichord? Let me see here. Okay, come on. Okay, yes, I did do the harpsichord. Okay, so now that is done, do this FX snare. Okay. Okay, so it's 11 FX. Snare. Maybe I'll make that snare FX. Okay. Okay. Do the record player scratching. Actually, I'll do these first. Wait, did I not? Okay, good. I'm just gonna hard mute these. Okay. So you might wonder why you wouldn't, like, why do I have to bounce out from start to finish through everything? And basically what it does is it means that everything is going to stay in its place, because everything's going to go from top to bottom and they're all going to be equal length. So when you import them, they're all going to be stuck relative to each other, so that things can't be moved around unless you manually cut and edit them. Call this reverse effects. I don't even know what to call it, so I'll just call it that. That's 12. I was playing Halo 5 last night with my old roommate and his brother, and we were playing Couch with the Flag, and it was the last round of the night, and so we were gonna. It was like, all right, we're gonna be done after this. We run in, we grab the flag, I'm running the flag back, and my roommate, or my old roommate, he was already back at the enemy base. So when I brought the flag back, it popped up and he was right next to it, and he grabbed it immediately, and he ran it, and immediately we got 2 in a row. And then I ran back and then grabbed it and got it halfway, or he went and grabbed it and got it halfway, and then I grabbed it and I got it back, and the match was over within a minute. It was insane. It's definitely a good way to go out for the night. Record scratch 13. If you just happen to be tuning in, you can take a look above my head over here in the left corner, and you can see my social medias. Go ahead and check those out if you'd like. My Instagram is @MattJohnsonAudio. My Facebook is MattJohnsonAudio, and then my website is MattJohnsonAudio.com. If you have any interest in working with me professionally, go ahead and check out my website for details. I have my prices for mixing and mastering, which I do remotely currently. Well, always, realistically, but currently specifically because of the times. Yeah, so if you are interested in working with me, check out my website. You can see my prices for mixing and mastering. I also have my prices for recording, which right now is a little bit limited, but under different circumstances, of course, is different. I do offer a mobile recording service if you are in a drivable area. So unfortunately, if you are in New York City, that's not exactly an option because it's not really an easy setup to take into the city. But if you do live in a more suburban or rural environment, I do offer mobile recording services. The only additional charge for mobile recording is I charge 58 cents per mile of traveling, which but that is not totally happening right now, so that's just for normal circumstances. But yeah. So, okay, 14, police siren. Okay. Yeah. And if you check my social medias, I'll be making updates to when I'm streaming in the future. If you happen to be watching this stream and look at my social media and see that I have not posted about this stream or the previous 2 streams, that is because these streams have been sort of test streams to make sure that everything works. Tonight we are going to be streaming on Pro Tools for the first time. So hopefully everything works out with that. I did a little bit of a test yesterday, a little bit of an offline test yesterday, so hopefully things will work out. But yeah, so all right, we're almost done here with this stuff in Logic. Okay. Final thing. Okay. Police radio. That is radio. Police radio. Okay. Here we go. Oof. I'm drinking out of a gigantic jug of water. It's always important to stay hydrated, am I right? Okay. So now we have everything completed. I'm just going to unmute this stuff for later. Okay. Make sure this is saved. I'm going to go check these files. Okay. So let me go into the folder. So we got everything laid out. Did I number everything correctly? Yes, I did. Okay, so see, everything's ordered 1 through 15. And so I'm just gonna go through them. I'm just gonna do a quick check. Okay. You can't hear this, by the way. This is not feeding into the stream, but you should be able to hear it a little bit through my mic. Okay. Okay. The worst thing that can happen to you is when you do this and then you realize that the click was running the whole time. So every track has a click in it, and you have to go and do the entire thing all over again. Okay. Okay. Okay, so everything's working fine. Everything was bounced correctly. Gonna get this saved. Gonna get this closed. Okay. Gonna put this on intermission for like a couple minutes. Gonna just switch over to Pro Tools real quick, and then I will be back. Alright, let me just make sure that the audio is routed. Let me just see here. Cool. Alright. So, now we're in Pro Tools. Welcome to Pro Tools. Okay, so I have everything pre-set up here. I have my markers set up. I have my click track just to make sure that the track is in line with the grid. Got my master fader. I got some master bus processing that is kind of preset. Hard to explain, but it's kind of left over from the previous version of the track. So, okay, so now we're going to get the files in here. So we're going to go to import. We're going to go to audio. Okay. Now we are going to go to desktop. We are going to go to the production file. We're going to go to bounces. We're going to go to mix bounce updates. Going to select all of the tracks. Now here's the key. Here's how you make sure that if you're going to share a session or if you're going to document your session as an isolated vehicle, what you need to do is make sure that the audio files are copied into the session folder. Now, so you have two options here. You have add, and what this will do is it will import it a session. What it won't do is copy the files into the session folder. So, meaning that if you do not have the folder mix bounces updated on whatever computer that the session is on, those files will not show up. So when you copy them by hitting copy, what it's going to do is it's going to not only import it, but add it to the audio folder inside of the session folder. Okay, so I'll show that right now, I guess. Notice that they are all in line, in order. So we import it. See, now it's the destination folder. This is the audio files folder within the Pro Tools session folder. Like, you make a session, it makes the folder with all the you have the session file and then all the external folders linked to that session file. That is this audio files folder. Okay, so that is going to copy all of those files that we now made for over the last hour and a half or whatever hour. About an hour we spent doing. It is going to copy those in so that if you send somebody the entire session, they will get those audio files with it. Or if you move it onto an external hard drive and it is not on the same hard drive as the folder with all the files in it, or with the Logic session, it will have those files to reference from. So, yeah, so it goes in there. Now you're all set. That is really important. Like, I went to a whole school for audio. I went to a school for a semester and a half. And they did not teach us that. And oh my God, the amount of times I had to deal with that, it was so annoying. And I didn't know what to do. They never explained how to do that, which is one of the reasons why I left that school. And then I ended up at Full Sail. And that's when I learned, you have to copy the files. They actually taught us how to actually organize our files and make sure that like, oh, it's like great, you can mix and whatnot, but like, it doesn't really matter if you can't find your files. So they really do, do the work with that. Okay, so what we have here is where we're going to do it. We're going to go to session start. We're going to put everything on the new tracks. If you're doing something in Pro Tools where you're going to just like copy and like paste a couple things, like say you're working on a movie or a video game kind of thing, and you're like copying and pasting, like you want to put one small clip multiple times, what you can do is you can put it into the clips list, and then it'll be in the clips list over here, but not here. And then you can copy and drag it multiple times off the clips list onto the track. So that's a little, thing to help you in those maybe not musical settings. So in this case, we're going to session start and we're making new tracks. Okay, so we got all of our tracks here. Okay. So now this is what I do. Okay, so I know that the kick and the snare have to be separated or monetized. 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 They have to be monetized. And was there something else that needed to do that? No, I don't believe so. I think it was just the snare, kick, snare, and bass. So I'm going to create new audio tracks, mono audio tracks. So it's going to be kick, did I spell that right? Snare, and bass. Okay. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the input a bus. So I'm going to make I'll use the kick sidechain and the snare sidechain. Okay, and then the bass, will just be bus 3. Okay, so we have essentially bus 1, 2, and 3 set. So then what we're going to do is we are going to set the output of these to that and that. And then the bass. We'll go to that. Okay, so then we're going to set these to record. Okay. We're going to highlight so that it records just the length that we have previously set. Let me see here. These will probably have to be turned down. So we'll turn them down like 5 dB. Because it's essentially going to send 2 signals into one channel. So you got to turn it down. Bass, bass, bass. Okay. Put this on input. And then we record. Cool. So now we have the kick and snare and bass down to mono. So we'll turn this off, this off, this off, this off. Okay, so now these have now become our default tracks. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide and make these inactive. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing for the bass. Hide and make inactive. Then I will take the bass and I will drag it down to the synth bass. Okay. Okay. Now we have all of this set up, so I'm going to save it. Now the next thing to do is the hi-hat and the shaker. We already have this split into mono, into dual mono. So then all we're going to do is we're going to split this into mono. So it's going to take it and it's going to split into its left and right. And then I'm going to take the stereo version. I'm going to hide and make it inactive. And then I'm simply going to rename the track so that it's specific. Actually, I don't need the numbering at all. I take that out. Okay. So we've got kick, snare, hats, shaker, bass. Now we're going to set the panning for this to about 25. And then I'll make this like 35 or something like that. Okay, this is mono, that's mono. I'm going to bring this in to 50-50 so it's not full wide. I might even bring that into 25, but I'll start with 50. Okay, so now I'm going to go through here. I'm going to just rename, well, not really rename, but like denumber all the tracks. Okay, so everything's renamed. So this is the trick. Now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna normalize it. Not in the way that you think necessarily. Maybe you do. I don't know. I didn't learn this till I went to Full Sail. So, so I used this audio suite. This is a Pro Tools specific thing. You go to other, and then you go to gain, and then it brings this up. And then you click analyze. It's going to tell you the average peak level. I like to put it at -6. So what I do is I go to the clip gain here then, and then I go, I need to go up 5.1. Then you go analyze, boom, -6. I have to go 5.9. minutes. Boom. Oh, was that like 8.2 or something? 9.2? Okay. Okay. It is really hard to read. Some of these are being raised very, very high. I would say that would be a problem if you were recording a real audio source, because you'd be like you'd be like raising the like noise level like significantly. Like you'd be raising the noise level by 15 dB or whatever, like but since these are all very much MIDI instruments, there is no noise, or it is not like recording an audio source. There's no room tone in theory, especially like the synthesized elements. So it really shouldn't be a problem. sometimes you luck out. Okay, so now everything has an average peak level of minus 6 dB, meaning that everything is equally normalized, so that when you're mixing, you can work purely from faders, and you don't have to worry about like okay, this one's so much louder than the other source, so this one I have to pull the fader down like a lot just to get it at a bass level, especially like you already have to turn the faders down to begin with, to even get a keep it from clipping the master bus. So realistically, like you can't have something like where you have to turn it down, 20 dB or 15 dB or something, and then you have to bring it down an additional 10 dB just so it won't clip. I mean, at that point, it's probably already clipping. Okay. Okay, so I made a group here. So this group is going to control all of these faders so that I can bring them all down. I usually like to start I'll just bring all of it down 10 dB. I think that's a good baseline, and then some stuff is going to be turned up. Like usually vocals, I have them up close to 0. So even with everything pulled down to 10, some stuff's going to go up. Like, I mean, there's no vocals in this right now, but like it will go up, so I like to just make 10 minus 10 like the sort of standard that will usually hit at a pretty healthy. Yeah, so it's like, right now, like it's peaking, between minus 5 and minus 10. So that's a pretty healthy place to start with. Some stuff's going to get pulled down. Like the synth bass is definitely going to get pulled down. Like it's loud as hell. So like, that's going to bring down a significant portion of stuff. And because you have all this, like everything set on the all audio group, like everything can, even when you move everything to different places, you can still bring everything down relatively together. So, there's that. Okay, so got my audio group. So the next thing I'm going to do in my session prep is I'm going to start making the subgroups, essentially. So I'm going to do this. If you highlight on Pro Tools, if you highlight the tracks and then you hold Shift and Option, and then do something, like right now I'm going to go do this. Stereo, aux input. Drum bus. Okay, so now I have the drum bus. And now all of these are now feeding into this track. So now I have all these selected. I'm going to color code them. I have a particular system I like to follow regarding color system. I generally will just do rainbow, which I guess is fitting for the month. But I generally will do rainbow because, I mean, it is it's a specific color pattern that is like very generic. Like it's not something weird, like it's not shades of brown or something like that. Which would be really, really weird if you're doing shades of brown in your Pro Tools sessions. That would be the grossest looking Pro Tools session in the universe. So I'll usually make drums red. So drums are basically always red. Like when I see red, I think drums. I follow the Roy G. Biv. So I'm going to select bass then. And I'm going to, I will also make sure that the drum bus, or like the bus, the sub buses are also the same color, so that I know, like, okay, this is the drum bus, So got the basses highlighted, shift option, click, new track, stereo, aux. If it were just like mono bass, like say I had 2 mono basses, I would make it a mono aux track. But in this case, the synth bass is in stereo, so bass bus, get on the bass bus. Okay, so Roy, red, orange. Okay. Now take these, and I will put these into another shift option, stereo, aux, and then I'll make this the key bus. So key bus. Okay, so red, orange, yellow. And then I will do I'll call these one shot. I'm just going to make this a whole category. It'll save me colors down the line when there's vocals and stuff too. Because sometimes it's not always the best system because you run out of colors really fast. Like if you have any more than like, was it Roy G. Biv 7 sub buses, then you're kind of screwed. Because I don't really like doing shades. Like it just makes it like, okay, it's like, okay, shades, or like slightly like I'm gonna make a teal track. Like, okay, that's kind of like blue, but it's kind of like green. Like, so sometimes it can be kind of limiting, but yeah. So shift option click, new track. I'll call this the FX bus. Stereo, okay. All right. So I got my drum bus, I got my bass bus, I got my key bus, got my FX bus. I would, if I had vocals, there'd be a Vox bus, and then background vocals would have a BG Vox bus. But that's not till later, so yeah. So I got my Roy G. Eventually I'll have Biv. yeah. So then what I'll do is I will take each sub bus. I will select each individual track, and I will make a group for all of them, so that I can turn, like, for example, I can turn all the drums down. This, I can turn all the basses down. This, I can turn all the keys down. And then this, I can turn all the FX down. Okay, so here we go. Okay, got that set up. So now everything, these are also color coded. Sometimes that won't happen. Sometimes you have to go into your settings and kind of mess around with some stuff to make it happen. Honestly, every time it happens, I forget how to fix it. So I end up just Googling, how do I fix this problem? And then I Google it and I go, oh yeah, I've done that 5 times. But yeah. So, okay. Got the markers set up. I had those set up from before. Let's make sure that that's cool. All right. Let me see. Is there anything else here? Tomorrow I'll probably stream some mixing / rough mixing. It's really always going to be a rough mix until I get all the vocals and everything and have all the elements together. It'll always be a rough mix until it's not the rough mix. So, yeah. So probably do that maybe tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that. I do have a call with JX tomorrow to discuss the track. So, yeah. So I'll keep you updated on that. Again, thank you for joining me. I've been really enjoying doing these streams. I'm definitely going to keep doing this. I am making a plan on doing a pre-recorded series on my YouTube specifically. That will go directly on YouTube. And it will not be streamed. So I'll keep you updated on that as I'm developing that right now. I'm trying to figure out the format for that. Yeah, so keep you updated on when I'm going to stream again. Make sure you check out my social medias. Give me a follow if you want to. You can see the social medias up in the right corner there. Here, let me. That doesn't help. There we go. You can see it up in the right corner there. Right here. Go to my Instagram at MattJohnsonAudio or my Facebook, MattJohnsonAudio, or my website, MattJohnsonAudio.com. On my website, MattJohnsonAudio.com, you can get more details regarding if you would like to do some professional work with me. You can see my prices and read a little bit more about me. I have a little bit of bio on there. And that website is continuing to be developed. I'm going to be adding more work on there, and developing that out more. So, I'm really looking forward to the continued development of my whole setup here, and yeah, so thank you for watching me live. If you're watching me live, thank you for watching the post recording. If you're watching the post recording on YouTube, thank you for doing that. If you are watching the post record on YouTube, go ahead and give me a subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell to know when I'm going to be live again. If you're on Twitch, go ahead and give me a follow. Set your notifications so you can know that I'm, when I'm going to be streaming again. Thanks for joining me. This is really good. All right. Well, we'll see you on the flip side.